Hi, Trina. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Sasha. Nice to meet you too.
I would love to hear what your book is about.
Well, 6 years ago, I found out that my daughter was addicted to heroin, and it's about the journey with her through that addiction, as well as my own journey as a mother in dealing with it, and the ups and the downs and the trials and all of that it entails.
That must have been so scary to discover. Can you tell me about what that was like? Just that whole experience.
Yeah, you know how sometimes one phone call seems like it can change your life in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And that was one of those phone calls. She called me after work one day. I was out walking the dog, and for her to reveal that to me was excessively hard for her, and for me as a parent. It was something I never thought that we would ever go through, or that she would ever go through. I was a single mom with her until the time she was 8, and I had just never anticipated that she would have these types of difficulties. And so as a parent, when you hear that your child is suffering with something like this, it kind of completely rewrites the story or the projections that you have for them for their life. And it's a big recalibration of expectations and learning what love is all about in a different way.
Were there any was there any period of time in which you felt like you could have seen this happening? Or tell me how after you got that call, what that felt like to arrange in your brain.
Yeah, it was about the furthest thing from my brain. I thought she was calling me to tell me she was pregnant, which would have been a lot easier in hindsight. I could have dealt with that. And instead, it's realizing that, she's dealing with this issue that is going to affect her. It's going to affect us for the rest of our lives. And I think maybe that was the hardest part in having this huge shift of what you think life is going to be like and how you've designed things to be. And wait a minute, this is not supposed to be happening. And yet it's happening, and you have to deal with it. The hardest part of that whole journey were, the periods where I wouldn't hear from her. There were times when she would reach out to me and let me know what was going on, or that she needed help, and then there were other times when she was completely silent. Weeks would go by and she wouldn't respond to my texts or my phone calls or emails, and it's those silent periods when your brain goes to the worst possible places. And I would go to the scary parts. Is she in a hospital somewhere? Is she living on the street and I don't know about it? Is she dead in an alleyway, from an overdose? I didn't know, and sometimes I would just, text her and say, I love you. Just let me know you're okay. That's all I need to know. I'm not bugging you about anything. Just let me know you're still alive. So, yeah, those are the scary times.
I'm reacting as a parent of a small child, and I can't imagine not knowing where my child is or not having that connection point. How did you cope with that? How did you even begin to deal with that with yourself?
I think in the beginning I wasn't coping that well, to be honest.
Yeah.
The first couple of years were really, really rough. In part because I was holding all of that in and not sharing it with people who could have helped at the time. I felt ashamed. I felt, this was not the life path I chose. This was not the path I chose for her. She grew up in a college town. She had cello lessons every week. She went off to college. It's like you don't anticipate, a child, being success, having that type of success and being smart and funny and outgoing, that they might have this issue at some point in life.
Right.
And so it really did come as a surprise, that addiction thing. It kind of explained why she was always short of money, but there are things we can look back and laugh at now. But yeah, it wasn't so funny during the time period that we were going through it.
Did telling your story now and then with others, just as part of the process, help you to feel connected to people who were also experiencing this story? I would imagine that was something that I'm curious to hear more about that.
Absolutely. You know, and it's weird because, you know, in the beginning of going through something like this, I felt like I was the only one experiencing it, which is a ridiculous perspective, but you feel so alone, and especially before I could open up to folks. And I just felt like I wanted to crawl into a cave and throw a bunch of rocks over me and never come out and see the light of day again.
Sure.
And when I finally started reading other people's stories and connecting with other people who had also been down this path, actually, you know, they were further along in their journey than I was, and they could tell me, it's going to be okay. Here are some things that helped me. You know, having that type of support network meant the world to me. But I think I had to find that first. And so I think being open about the story is my attempt to help other people, kind of in a way of giving back in thanks for the help that I got, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So someone might see this story and know that they're not alone.
Even if it's one person, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing this story.